Okay, shall we? Okay. So we are starting with a new topic in that topic of Shimshon, and we will start to analyze Shimshon and his encounters with Plishtim, until obviously we're going to reach the ultimate encounter with the Dlila and the end of it. So let's start with the first encounter between Shimshon and his and the Plishtim. So the Tanakh says, "Vayered Shimshon Timnata." So Shimshon went down to Timnata. Vayar isha betimnata mibnot Plishtim, and he saw in Timnata, he saw a woman from the daughters of Plishtim. Now, obviously, when you look at this verse, even without looking at the mefarshim, at the commentators, you see that the first word in the pasuk, Vayered Shimshon Timnata, can be explained as just, it was in a valley, so he went down from his city down to the valley. But if you know Tanakh, and there are some biblical connotations, the one thing is obviously Vayered Yehuda. And when we talk about Vayered Yehuda, we all know the famous Rashi, talking about morally, or talking about being removed from a position, or basically a symbolic thing for what? For going down spiritually as well. So the idea of Vayered Yehuda, again, can be explained geographically, or can be explained in a different way. So obviously this is something that caught the eye of all the commentators. And for example, the Radak says, Vayered Shimshon Timnata, Uchtiv beYehuda, Inech Chamich Ole Timnata. So he said something interesting. It says with Yehuda, as we mentioned before, it says to Tamar, they told her, Inech Chamich Ole Timnata. He goes up. And with Shimshon, it says he's going down. So the first question of the Radak is, Rega, is that the same city or it's not the same city? You go up or you go down to reach that city? So one way to solve this issue, in a very simple way, just say it depends where you're coming from. Okay? You can go up or you can go down. It's like the Aliyot v'Yeridot b'Yerushalayim, right? Like the ups and downs in Yerushalayim, it depends where you're coming from, right? It's all Aliyah, there is no all Yerida. But it depends where you're coming from. But he might give you a hint for something. When Yehuda went up to Timnata, and then he met Tamar and all of that, that was the beginning of his ascent back to leadership. And it's interesting that in that same place, in Timnata, someone can go down, start his demise, and someone can begin his ascent. So this is maybe a hint the Radak is giving us. And then he says, ויש מרבותינו ז"ל שאמרו, שני תמנות היו, ומהם אמרו חד התמנתי, דעתי מהי גיסא עלייה, דעתי מהי גיסא ירידה. Okay. So basically it says some of our Rabbi says that there are two different cities with the same name, that's one, or one city, but it depends where you're coming from. ודרך דרש, יהודה שנתעלה בה, כתיב בעלייה, שמשון שנתגנה בה, כתיב בירידה. So this is what I meant when I said it before. With regarding to Shimshon, it says Vayered. That was the beginning of his issues, going down to Timnah and getting married with one of the daughters of Plishtim. And for Yehuda, it was Aliyah. It was an ascent because then he met Tamar. Whatever happened, but it led him to say Tzadkah. Yeah, probably. It's in the front. So that's what the Radak says. Okay. So basically, according to the Radak, the beginning of Shimshon's activities is basically already a reflection of what? Of him going down. So it's interesting because he didn't even start anything. So the first activity he's involved with leads him to what? Leads him to his demise. Okay. The Abarbanel says the following. השאלה הראשונה, איך שמשון בהיותו שופט את ישראל, ובהיותו נזיר אלוקים מן הבטן, ומתקדש מכל טומאה, איך בעל בת איש נחר? Shimshon, a judge, a Nazir from birth, is going to have relationship with a daughter from the Plishtim. והיה לוקח כל מקום אישה מבנות פלישתים הערלים. And everywhere he will go, he will take a woman from the בנות פלישתים. So that's obviously some kind of a contradiction to who he was. ואין ראוי שנסתפק במה שאמרו חז"ל, שהיה מגייר אותם ושישיבן לדת ישראל, כי זה לא נזכר בכתוב. He says, I'm well aware, and if you remember, the Radak said it 2 weeks ago. I mean, he said it 600 years ago, but we mentioned him 2 weeks ago, talking about the fact that he says, he converted them. And we said, and the Barbanel agrees with us, there is nowhere in the Psukim that he converted them. ואין ראוי, וגם סיפורי הנשים ומעשיו עמהן, ומעשיהן עמו, לא יסבול שיאמר זה. ולכן יקשה מאוד איך שופט ישראל ומושיעו היה מתחתן בבנות פלישתים, ועובר בלאו דלא תתחתן בם, המביא לידי כפירה והסרת לב מהאלוקים. Barbanel asked a very good question, and he says, how can we explain, how can we reconcile in our own mind the idea of a shofet, someone who is mentioned in the Tanakh, b'chol zot, someone that we obviously invest in him few chapters, and he's doing something that every person understands not to do. Yes?
It bothered me what we learned last week. It didn't bother me. I thought about what we discussed last week about his father and his mother being such tremendous opposite, that the father was a Ma'aretz, right? So could we, in a modern way, say that there's genetics involved here, that he had some and some? Why not?
He might.
He had a father. He had a mother. He was influenced by both.
I don't have any. I don't have any ways to. I don't have any ways to prove it or disprove it. I will just say one thing. You can say that even an Amaretz understands that he's not going to marry a Bat Plishtim. Or you can say, because he's such an Amaretz, he doesn't think that it's so important. I leave it open. This is not something that will... just 1 second. Yeah.
He didn't decide to become a Nazir on his own.
No.
It wasn't his idea. He was forced into it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe he was just rebelling.
Okay, so basically what you are saying is, what you're suggesting is what we saw last week, that we saw that God in a way created almost an impossible situation for Shimshon. On one hand, there is a tremendous level of expectation of purity, and at the same time, you put him in the lion's den, okay, and expect him to what? To be pure. So this is something that it's obviously very complicated. Yes. That's what God, right? That's what God wanted, but it didn't work because you still have a free choice. That God's plan was exactly what you said. I gave you enough strength to overcome your desires, but it didn't work all the time.
Strength, maybe not moral courage.
Maybe, yeah.
Is it talking about a lot of women here?
Yeah, we will see. We are just with the first one. Just wait. We are just with the first one. Okay. So, Vayeret Shimshon Timnata. So the Abarbanel continues. Vayeret Shimshon Timnata. מצאנו פעמים רבות בסיפורי הנביאים. We found many times in the stories of the prophets. שהיו עושים פעמים דברים אשר לא כדת. We found that other נביאים also did things that are not based on our religion. כדי שיצא מהם עבודת הקהל יתברך. But at the end of the day, the result was something that served God. For example, אליהו בהר הכרמל, שעבר על דת להקריב בבמה, והיה להוראת שעה כדי לפרסם בתוך בני ישראל, כי השם הוא האלוקים. Now he brings an example, which we will need to analyze if that's a good example or not, but definitely he's right about the example. The example is that you have a prophet who did something against halakha, Eliyahu. Eliyahu brought sacrifices on the top of Mount Carmel when you should really bring it only babamot, in the altars that you built. The bama in Har Carmel was what we call altars only in Shiloh, where the Mishkan was. But you can't do it in every mountain. Eliyahu decided he's going to bring a sacrifice on the top of the Carmel mountain, and that's against halakha. That's called shchutei chutz. Therefore, he did something against the halakha. So how can you refer to Eliyahu as a prophet, as Answer is, he did it בהוראת שעה. What does it mean, הוראת שעה? הוראת שעה means that there are exceptions. Sometimes time requires different measures, and therefore he decided he is going to gather the entire Jewish people to the Carmel mountain. He will let the false prophets to do their own meshigas, and then he's going to show the entire Jewish people that what? That Hashem hu Elokim. So he did something against the halacha in order to do what? In order to accomplish a spiritual goal. Okay? You can fast forward, not a Navi, but a Rabbi. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, he quote-unquote wrote down the Torah Shebe'al Peh. Why? Because he saw that if he will not do it, people will forget everything. Okay. So therefore, the Abarbanel says, וכן ראוי שנאמר בעניין שמשון, שעשה דברים אשר לא כדין, לפי שימצא תואנה להינקם מפלישתים. Basically, he knew that marrying those daughters of Plishtim, he is doing something against God. But he thought that avera lishma is a good thing. Now, what does it mean, avera lishma? We'll talk about it in a minute. Basically, Shimshon says, I know I'm going to do something that it's against the halacha, but I'm accomplishing the goal that I was sent to accomplish, which means I need to fight against Plishtim. The Jewish people are not with me. I'm going to be a lone wolf. We spoke about it. I need to find incidents, lechapes, mamash, to find or to create those environments that there is going to be a tension between me and the Plishtim, so I can take revenge and kill some of them. And this is how I'm going to weaken them. Now, that obviously brings us to a discussion of Avera Lishma. For example, one of the prime examples of Avera Lishma is Yael. Yael Eshet Hever Akini. What did Yael do? When Sisra started running away, she told him, hey, come to my tent, I'll protect you. She gave him a cup of milk, and she gave him food, and she put him to sleep, and then she cut his head off, okay? Now, that sounds very nice. That's what you say to the children in kindergarten. When you read the psukim, especially the song of Dvorah, you understand that it was much more than just a hot cup of chocolate milk and a cookie, okay? That was relationships that she basically had with him. According to Chazal, it was a little bit exaggerated. And she, no, she was not Jewish. But what does it mean, Jewish or not? Let's leave that aside. And basically what happened was that she did Avera Lishma in order to what? To kill him. Another example, which is not a prime example, but it's a secondary example, it's Esther. Esther being with Achashverosh, in a way, she had to, especially if she was married to Mordechai, according to Chazal, okay, she had to say, kill me, I'm not going to be with you. She didn't. Why did she do that? In order to save the entire Jewish people. Now, it used to be, and the Gemara talks about it, that like we say, that it's better, for example, to learn Torah shelo lishma, shemitoch shelo lishma, ba lishma. It used to be a stage in Jewish history that people did Aveira Lishma. Nowadays, Moichel Toives, no one go out from here and start finding Averot Lishmam. Okay? Try to find even mitzvot shelo Lishma. But don't try to say, Rabbi Finkelstein told me I need to find an Aveira Lishma. Okay? I'll deny it, even if though I am recorded. We are not doing that anymore. There are no Averot Lishma. By the way, to the extent, that we canceled Yibum.
We canceled
Yibum. There is Chalitza today. Or just Chalitza. Why? Because people are concerned that people are doing that only leznut, just for the relationships and not to really marry her. And therefore there is no Yibum, there is Chalitza. So this is another example, just an example, not to open up a discussion. Just an example of how this thing, Lishma, Avera Lishma, it does not exist anymore. However, what we see from here, we see that the Abarbanel compares two different examples. One example is what Eliyahu did. Eliyahu made a decision to what? To bring a sacrifice outside of the tabernacle. In order to what? To prove the Jewish people that there is only one God. So he did that. Shimshon, according to the Abarbanel, did the same thing on a different level. He violated of lo titchaten bam, that you should not marry someone like that, and doing that in order to accomplish his divine mission, which was to kill Plishtim. אוקיי. Now, וידמה,
Rabbi,
סליחה, רגע.
I have one problem with that. Because
If you have only one, you are great.
every figure, whether Joseph or the Judah, every man screw up some way with a woman in the Torah. But every righteous one usually hear or the Hashem command. This case to me sounds like it was Shimshon his own decision by free will. Did
Yes.
it really come from the Hashem, the thought and mind?
So, yes and no. What do I mean by that? Sometimes, first, by the way, also with Tamar and Yehuda and Yosef and Eshet Potiphar, God did not talk to them. That was their decisions. Yehuda failed, and in a way, according to Chazal, the angel pushed him, whatever it is.
But at least parents came out. Let's give them credit.
Yeah, and from here, the Plishtim, many of the Plishtim were killed because of what he did. Okay? So the thing is like that. The problem is sometimes is the uncertainty, not sometimes. The problem is the uncertainty of God's commandment and mission. Which means Shimshon was raised, let's say, with the prophecy that he yachel leoshia et Israel. He is going to what? To start save the Jewish people. He will start the salvation. How? He looks here, he looks there. None of the Jewish people is joining him. No one. There is no army, there is nothing. He looks only at him. So what can he do? Don't forget, Plishtim control
The weapon.
the Jewish people, their weapon and the Jewish people. So the only thing that you can create tension between me and them is what? You might not pay taxation, but not paying taxation of one person is not going to make
It's not
any
to save
waves.
nation.
So the only way is to marry with them or in them, to dwell among them, and then, now we can have fights. So the only way in Shimshon's mind is I need to find a way to be with them. What's the best way to be with them? Marriage. So in a way, yes, there was no choice to Shimshon unless he will do that. And by the way, if he will convert her, it will go against it, because if he will convert her and she is going to live in a Jewish neighborhood, okay, ma yesh lecha veli with Plishtim. So he need to what? To build a house where? In a Plishtim neighborhood, so he will be upset. Basically he's looking to be upset. So in a way, Shimshon, in a way, did not really have a choice. That's what the Abarbanel also wants to claim. Now, let's continue. And then he says, כל שכן שלא היה הרוח האלוקי אשר בו מיושב ומסודר לעשות תשועות כשאר השופטים, ולא היה דעתו שלם. He's saying two things. He's saying one, he says, הרוח האלוקי שבו, meaning God's spirit or the divine spirit within Shimshon was very different than it was in Yiftach, Shmuel, Gidon, or whatever it is. With each one of them, it says, התחילה רוח השם להיות עליו, that the spirit of God was on him. And when the spirit of God was on that judge, it was fully, all encompassing. With Shimshon, if you remember, it says, רוח השם לפעמו. Remember, that was last week, the last thing from last week. Like a bell. Sometimes, yes, it's from לפעמו, from the word לפעמים. What is לפעמים? Sometimes. So, sometimes he was a judge, and sometimes he was what? A Shimshon.
A man.
Yeah. So therefore, also just imagine how you move. Now in the 21st century, we can only imagine, how do you move from a spiritual height to just be a regular person? So you move from here to there, which is very, very difficult, and especially when you have inclinations, desires, strength, and whatever it is. So he continues and he says, and also, velo haya da'ato shalem. Now, I don't know what it means, meaning I can give you options. Velo haya da'ato shalem can means what? He was not the smartest guy ever.
Ambivalent.
Can be ambivalent. Can be he did not understand or he was confused. I think all explanations can be implemented with Shimshon. And then he says, אבל הקל יתברך למשפט שמו וצור להוכיח יסדו, ולזה השפיע בו רוח גבורה וחוזק מופלג, והיה עם הפעמות, which means מה לעשות? Hashem looked at the entire Jewish people, and the only guy that he really thought he can trust was Shimshon. But because Shimshon was not really ready, so from time to time, God gave him what? Like a glimpse of spirituality, and then Shimshon got tzehitzt and did what God wanted from him. ונמשך מזה שבראותו אישה תיטב בעיניו. Whenever he saw a woman, she looks nice in his eyes. לא היה מעצור לרוחו, ובחרות אפו לא יעמוד דבר לפניו. So, like everything in life, you have the good and the bad, which means, on one hand, because he was so impulsive, whatever woman he saw, he says, what? She's the one for me. And then every time someone made him upset, he was angry. And he was upset. And he took revenge. So you have a person who is very impulsive on both ends. Impulsive in choosing a wife, and impulsive also in what? In ending a marriage. We will see that in a few minutes. And also taking revenge.
So it's a little bit of a problem, in my opinion, when you have someone who's chosen from utero to have a purpose and to accomplish something, and then it turns out he's kind of not so terrific.
Not so?
Terrific.
Yeah. So probably 2 months from now, Bezrat Hashem, we will address your question, Susie. Meaning, how come, at the end of the day, we will portray Shimshon in different ways, and by the way, I'm not going to always try to find criticism on him. We will find some good and we'll favor in him. However, at the end of the day, he's a very complicated figure. And the question that you need to ask yourself, why did God
Choose him.
again?
Create this whole situation.
We need to, because here it's a little different. So here it's a little different than the question about, how come that we have David HaMelech from Ruth. Here it's like, just pick another guy. Like, or what exactly did he accomplish? Okay, so he killed 5,000 Plishtim. Shkoich. Yeah, the Plishtim was still there until when? David HaMelech. So what exactly is the accomplishment here? Okay, so we will need to address it later. Good question. Okay.
Does he explain about why he was so the only one? That's what the problem.
Not for now. Yeah. So then he says, Veidme. Now take a look. He's addressing some more issues. Veidme. It seems שבתום לבבו היה חושב שלעניין נזירותו לא היה מחויב כי אם בדברים שהזהיר המלאך עליהם והם איסור כל אשר יצא מגפן היין ושלא יאכל כל טומאה ומורא לא יעלה על ראשו ושאר הדברים היה נמשך בהם אחרי תאוותו. So Shimshon thought the only prohibitions that I need to fulfill is what? No haircut, no wine, and now no impurity. The rest of it?
Everything goes.
Free for all. Now, a little bit of a simple-minded, or we will call it בעברית ראש קטן. Meaning, whatever I was told, I'll do. Whatever I was not told to do, I am not going to do. And then he says, והקל יתברך הספיק בידו לעשותם כן. Even though Shimshon obviously went against God's will, God allowed him to do it, and not only allowed him to do it, as you said exactly, he stayed with him. By the way, just as a side note, going forward to the end, when Shimshon says to Hashem, Zochreini na, please God remember me, and Hashem says, okay, I will remember you and I'll help you out. Not everyone can do that, okay? So we need to understand the complexity. Yes?
Okay, I'm getting confused about Shimshon is a Nazir, okay, and the three prohibitions are drinking wine, cutting the hair, and coming in contact with the dead. Did I miss something in terms of his...
No, not at all.
But then we said that's all he was told to do.
He didn't do the
Now
religious-
we're criticizing everything else he does,
He
but
didn't
he's
do
not
mitzvot.
violating the Torah, in terms of what a Nazir is.
Sure he does. And you are correct. And you should be confused. Because the Abarbanel says that he kept it. And we know that he I'm saying he, meaning Shimshon thought that by not drinking wine, by not getting a haircut, and but not being in the presence of impurity, he's fine. And those are the things that he will do, and the other things he will not. The question here is, I think, based on the stories, is that he touched the bodies. At the end, he got a haircut. I mean, not knowingly, but he got a haircut, and he definitely maybe drank wine with the Plishtim. We will see that later.
Okay, so
yeah.
All right. So the only thing he does is doesn't cut his hair.
Right.
He was forced to cut.
Yeah.
And that was the case as well.
Right. So you should be confused.
Okay, good.
Good. Okay. רגע. לפי שאם היותם פעולות משובשות מפאת עצמם, even though all these activities were wrong, הנה יימשך מהם הנקמה מפלישתים. So why God was with him, even though he basically disrespect God's commandments, it's because of the end goal, which was נקמה מפלישתים, revenge on the פלישתים. וכבר בא זה בכתוב, כי כאשר זכר שהלך שמשון אל תמנתה וראה שם אישה וחשקה בנפשו, ואמר לאביו ולאמו שיקחו אותה לו לאישה. So the minute he saw a daughter of Plishtim, for him, he already saw a potential for what? Not a beautiful marriage, but for revenge. And this is why God allowed him to do that. Which means, so if I'll make some order here with all the confusion that we will continue to have, God has one goal. Nekama mi Plishtim. How? By Shimshon. Shimshon, you have different ways to do it. I don't know, you can make a business with them and then get upset and burn their entire city. Okay? He chose marriage. Okay, even with marriage, there are different ways to do it. But Shimshon chose marriage, and God allowed him to continue on with his actions because the end goal is going to be there. Now, this is an interesting thing because we know that we always have a discussion about המטרה מקדשת את האמצעים. Right? Which means in English what? Does the mean justify the right? And the end justify the means. Yes. So the thing is, according to what we see here, the answer is yes. Yes.
Maybe for a leader in war it does, but not necessarily another.
Might be, but for now with Shimshon, God is in a way, not only don't stand in the way, he's helping Shimshon in order to reach that goal. Okay. So the Abarbanel continues, ושמשון לא חשש מזה כלל, ולא אמר שיגייר אותה. He didn't care that he's going to marry a daughter of Plishtim, he's not going to convert her, waste of time. אבל אמר לבד לאביו אותה קח לי לאישה כי ישרה בעיניי. She's good in my eyes, take her. רוצה לומר שלא חשש על האיסור, אבל הלך לבד אחר מחמד עיניו. He saw her, she looks good, I'm taking her. But just one second. ולפי שאימו הייתה מתרעמת על זה הרבה, his mom was very upset with him. Why are you taking this girl? What? Take Ruchel, take Leah, take Miriam. Why are you taking... I don't know, what do you call that? We know Dlila, but probably there is another Plishtim girl. Okay? לכן לא אמרו לאמו. It says, look at the pasuk. It says, where is the pasuk? ויאמר לאביו קחה לה אותה, ויגיד לאמו, ויגד לאביו ולאמו, ויאמר אישה ראיתי, ואתה קחו אותה לי לאישה. But later on he says, only to אביו. Why? Because his mom will chastise him and say, why are you taking her? Take a Jewish girl. And then he says, לפי שלא תאמר כמו שאמרה רבקה, אם לוקח יעקב מבנות חטא למה לחיים, ואמר זה לאביו לבד, אותה קח לי לאישה כי ישרה בעיניי. וסיפר הכתוב הסיבה בכל זה ובאומרו, ואביו ואמו לא ידעו. So we will talk about that a little bit later, but basically he says that what Shimshon did was not exactly right in God's eyes, but also in his mom's eyes. And that goes back to our story before, that when you compare Manoach to his wife, obviously Manoach is in a different madrega, and his wife is in a different level. Vayal vayaged le'aviv ule'imo. So he went down to Timnata. So then he goes up and he says to his father and his mother, Vayomer isha raiti betimnata mibnot Plishtim. I saw a woman in Timnata from the daughters of Plishtim. Ve'ata k'chu ota li leisha. Take her to a woman to me. I want her to be my wife.
So, excuse me. So when it says about Nekama, it's Hashem's matara, not Shimshon's.
No, it's Shimshon's matara, meaning it's Shimshon's matara in order to fulfill God's mission. Meaning God's mission to Shimshon was, you need to start the salvation. And you start taking revenge on the Plishtim. Now it's up to you how you're going to do that. So Shimshon chose the way of marriage. So, and God allowed him to do it because that was his divine mission. קצת ככה. So,
Abarbanel says he didn't tell his mother.
the first one, yes. The second one, now.
What's another
Yeah,
one?
that's someone asked, only one woman? No, I said, Baruch Hashem, he took many. Vayal vayaged li. Okay, says Ralbag, 14th century, והתחכם למצוא תואנה מפלישתים, כדי שיוכל להכותם. So he tried to find what? A plan, exactly what I said, yeah. To find a way that he can take revenge on the Plishtim, so he can beat them up. ולזה בחר לקחת אישה מפלישתים, כי בזה האופן חשב שישיג מבוקשו. This is the best way. I marry one of you, so it shows that I'm great with you, and that's the way you treat me. אוי ואבוי. והנה אמרו ז"ל, so he brings the...
Which pasuk are you on, please? Is it
It's
pasuk?
Ralbag, in the middle of Ralbag. והנה אמרו ז"ל, and our sage says, שהוא גיירה תחילה. So he converted her first. כי חלילה למישהו שופט ישראל, שיתגאל בבנות הפלישתים, ויהיה עובר על מה שהזהירה התורה מלהתחתן בם, כל שכן שהוא היה נזיר אלוקים. So the Ralbag, unlike the Abarbanel, the Ralbag in the 14th century says, no. He converted her. Where? We don't know. Who was the Beidin? We don't know. Who wrote for her a certification? We definitely don't know. And somehow he converted her, because if not, how come he's the Nazir and how come he's a judge? So we saw the Abarbanel and the Radak and many others says there was no conversion, but okay, that's a fair discussion between the commentators. Okay. Take a look at what his parents tells him. ויאמר לו אביו ואמו, האין בבנות אחיך ובכל עמי אישה, כי אתה הולך לקחת אישה מפלישתים הערלים? What are you doing? Like, take a Jewish woman. ויאמר שמשון אל אביו. Here you got it.
Not even talking to his mother.
קח לי כי היא ישרה בעיניי. By the way, just put it in your back burner. The word yashra be'enai is mentioned many times, and at the end of the day, one eye is off. So then, ואביו ואמו לא ידעו כי מהשמי. What is כי מהשמי? That he wants to marry her, that's Hashem's plan. כי הוא מבקש, כי תואנה הוא מבקש מפלישתים, ובעת ההיא פלישתים מושלים בישראל. Meaning he can't go directly to a war, to wage a war against Plishtim. Why? He's going to lose, and no one is going to join him. So therefore he's looking for what? For points of tension to have a fight with them, knowing, by the way, that no one is going to join him. Okay. Says the Abarbanel, כי מהשם היא, כי תואנה הוא מבקש מפלישתים. It's from Hashem, that because he's looking for a point of tension between him and Plishtim. רוצה לומר, it comes to teach you, כי הקהל יתברך נתן מקום לזה לשמשון, להיות תואנה להינקה מפלישתים. Meaning Hashem allowed it to happen, so Shimshon will be able to fulfill his divine mission. ואמר, ובעת ההיא פלישתים מושלים בישראל, at that time Plishtim controlled the Jewish people, להגיד, שעשה הקדוש ברוך הוא סיבה לשינקמו ישראל מפלישתים ולא בידיהם כי אם ביד שמשון. Hashem wanted that revenge to be not in the hands of the Jewish people, but rather through Shimshon. ושלא יעמוד ברשותם, כי אם ברשות פלישתים אף בעת הנקמה. And Hashem planned it in a way that when Shimshon will take his revenge, he will do it from within the Plishtim neighborhood and nation. Meaning, it's not that Shimshon will be living in Baka, okay, and will take revenge in the Plishtim, because then the Plishtim will go after whom?
Baka.
After Baka. Now Shimshon will tell them, you have problems with me? Deal with me. Right? ובאופן שלא יימצאו הפלישתים טוענה על ישראל הזה, אבל יהיה מיוחס העניין לשמשון לבדו. It's almost like עקדת יצחק. Really. Shimshon is being chosen to take the entire responsibility on him. He is going to marry a Plishtit. He is going to take the revenge. He is going to be blamed for the revenge. And the Jewish people are only going to what? To enjoy the fruit of his labor, which means 5,000 Plishtim less to deal with at the time of King David. This is a tremendous expectation from Shimshon. And then it says, ופלישתים ימנעו מלהילחם בישראל מיראת שמשון. כי היו הפלישתים מושלים בישראל כמו שזכר, והותרה עם זה השאלה הראשונה. And he says something, it's brilliant interpretation. He says, look at the divine's plan. Shimshon will marry a Plishtit. He will create a points of tension. He will take his revenge. The Plishtim will look at him and say, Rega, we cannot go after the Jewish people. Why? They didn't do anything against us. It's only this guy, Shimshon. But 1 second. The only people we can blame for what he did is him and us. It's not the Jewish people. They did not send him here. Look, he did something against their Torah. Okay? He sits among us. We are responsible. We shouldn't blame anyone else. Therefore, God created it in a way that it will all be Shimshon. Yes.
The Plishtim, were
They hated us since we came.
so they didn't even, I don't understand.
No.
this.
The only question is control. There is fight and there is control.
Okay.
They always fought against us, but they had control over us for 40 years.
So in this situation,
They are controlling us.
Bush's control.
Yeah, that's what we spoke about. They didn't allow us to create any weapons and they controlled us. We
No.
probably
I mean,
paid.
This situation of Shimshon, the fact that he took a wife, they felt that they were losing control.
No, they're not losing control. The thing is, because they have the control and Shimshon is taking revenge, the only people that they can blame is not the Jewish people. It's them. That's what it means. Which means, even in the time of Shaul, the only people who had a sword was Shaul and Yonatan.
Yeah.
So basically, the Jewish people are too weak. Therefore, God does not want the Plishtim to wage a war against the Am Israel because they will lose.
Why should it bother them that he's taking a Plishtim wife?
Who?
Why should it bother the Plishtim?
No, it doesn't bother them. No. It bothers them that when he will take revenge with them, then obviously when they see the 500 Plishtim are dead because of him, they will be upset. But they cannot be upset with the Jewish people because the Jewish people basically disown Shimshon. Shimshon is basically a lone wolf. So the only person you can be upset with is Shimshon or yourself. Okay.
Since when do our enemies stop?
Do what?
Since when do anti-Semites stop?
Interestingly enough, there are laws of war. Meaning, if they did not wage a war on you, not only that they did not wage a war on you, they don't have the tools to fight you. We disown Shimshon. I will tell you even more than that. Why I think. I agree with the Abarbanel and the Radak that he never converted her. Because by not converting her, he basically says to the Plishtim, I'm one of yours. I don't belong to the Jews. Am Israel has nothing to do with me, and we will see it later on, that the tribe of Judah extradite Shimshon to the hands of the Plishtim without hesitations. They just gave them Shimshon, here you go, take him. The Jewish people didn't like Shimshon too much. Some of them I can already hear saying probably to themselves, what is he doing? He's putting us in troubles. Okay? We want to serve the Plishtim, let it be. So that's what God does with this plan, which is an incredible plan. Basically, Shimshon will be a pariah in the Jewish people's eyes. According to the Plishtim, is quote unquote one of them. And by the way, you see that, the narrative does not say anything, but her parents, that Plishtit, They don't care. They don't have any say. I don't know if they have a say in the ancient times, but
Marry Jewish boys.
yeah, but the thing is the point is what? The point is that Shimshon is basically like not with us and is more with them. So it's your problem, it's not ours.
And also, in a brilliant way, in that time, without allowed to make a weaponry system, without allowed to have any IDF, God separated Shimshon, just like you said, or empathize. God separated Shimshon as a one mighty giant leadership. The rest of them perhaps don't have a God yet, want to live in peacefully without conflict with the Philistines. God doesn't want, not like a Gideon's battle. Even Gideon's battle, God told Gideon, I'm only going to give you a few thousand.
Right.
The rest of them go home, enjoy their life.
Yep.
Perhaps at that time, the rest of the folks not ready for the battle.
That's what I said, yes. And with Gideon is a little different. That was to prove a different point. Here, it's the Jewish people are not ready. We are talking about the beginning of salvation. We're not talking about a final salvation and redemption. We're talking about the beginning, and the beginning starts with what? With the lone wolf that basically takes revenge. Okay, I think we beat up the...
One question.
Yes.
Did the women, the Philistine women, did they always want him and want to be married to him? Or was he
No idea.
seducing them in a way that they weren't wanting to go so much, but for some reason...
Okay, you're asking a good you're asking a good question. You're asking a good question. The thing is like that. Shimshon basically took whatever wife he wanted from the Plishtim, and the Plishtim, I guess, agreed with it for whatever reason. Maybe because he was able to provide tremendous nedunia for them. Maybe he was good looking. Maybe he was very strong. I have no idea. But not every Plishtit says, please take me. So that's for sure not. The only thing is that after a while, and that's what Chazal basically are saying, that when he was captured, many of the Plishtiot were sent to be with him because they thought that his strength will go through a DNA, not knowing that it was a prophetic promise and whatever it is. But the idea is...
Did he have children?
Just one second. But the idea is that not all of them threw themselves on his, to him and say, please marry me. I don't know if he had children. I don't think he had children. No. Now, let's continue. Says the Metzudat David,
Where were you up to?
מצודת דוד, שופטים, פרק י"ד, פסוק ד'.
Okay, yes, thank you.
מושלים בישראל, they controlled ישראל, ואם היכה בהם בלא עלילה, היו הפלושתים חושבים שבני ישראל הסיתו והיו נוקמים מהם, מה שאין כן על ידי העלילה, כי אז יאמרו שמדעתו עשה. So the מצודת David agrees with our theory. Basically, the idea of associating with Plishtim and not with the Jewish people, that will basically provide us with an alibi. It's not us. Meaning, if the Plishtim will tell the Jewish people, why are you sending him? We will tell them, he's not ours. He's all yours. Okay. פסוק ה' וירד שמשון ואביו ואמו תמנתה. So they go down again to Timnata. To what? To cement the marriage. ויבואו עד כרמי תמנתה. So they reach the vineyards of Timnata. והנה כפיר אריות שואג לקראתו. So there is a lion cub who is rose, and obviously it's probably a terrifying event. ותצלח עליו רוח השם. From nowhere, the spirit of God basically comes on him. וישסהו כשסע עגדי. So he basically tear up this lion cub like that. ומאומה אין בידו. And he has nothing in his hands, just his hands. ולא הגיד לאביו ולאמו את אשר עשה. And he didn't tell his parents what he did. So now this is an interesting thing.
He's going with his parents.
He's going with his parents, and then he goes somewhere else. So I know, maybe they went to the bathroom, maybe he went to find food. Look, yeah. When you go with your parents, he was a teenager. He can't go with his parents. It looks bad. So he went ahead and found this lion cub, and he decided to tear him apart, and everything is great. Okay.
Is he allowed to go by the vines?
Oh, interesting. יפה. ויבואו עד כרמי תמנתה. Until they didn't reach the vineyard themselves. But then take a look at what the Metzudat David says. ולא יגיד, על כי לא היה נחשב בעיניו לגודל גבורה להתהלל בדבר. It was not a big deal.
Live on the path.
What do I need to glorify myself and to, this was okay. Yeah, so I just tear up like a lion cub. That's easy. Now, interesting. His parents didn't ask him anything. He didn't tell his parents anything. And that was like almost like maybe a sign for him. You have the strength.
It must have been very neat. I mean, you know,
Would
when
it
you
get black?
Yeah. Maybe he had a spare shirt. I don't know. The Malbim says, ושמשון הבין שיקרא השם זאת לקראתו למען יכיר כוחו וידע שהוא מוכן להצליח נגד אויבי השם. כמו שנאמר אצל דוד, גם את הארי ואת הדוב היכה עבדיך, ולכן לא הגיד לאביו ולאמו. This is a very important explanation of the Malbim. The Malbim says, look, Shimshon understood that this is a divine sign. Not everyone understands those things. He understood that this is a divine sign that he has the strength, but he didn't want to tell his parents. Why didn't he want to tell his parents? We spoke about this. What I'm saying now, it's not the Malbim, it's me. You like it, you don't like it, you should like it. The thing is like that. Last week we spoke about, last week, about the idea, 2 weeks ago, that one of the questions that we asked was, why is it that he was called Shimshon? Remember that one?
Yes.
And we spoke about that and why it was told only to the mother and not to the father. And we said that the mother was concerned that what? That the father will talk too much and the Plishtim will hear that this baby is destined for greatness, and they will kill him very much like with Moshe Rabbeinu, right? So that's why she didn't share it with her husband. Perhaps Shimshon also knew that. And it's almost like an Ish Mossad. Okay, it's like almost like working in the FBI. I can't tell you where I work because it will put you in danger. Which means Shimshon realized that now he's starting his path towards fulfilling the divine mission. If he will tell his parents, look, I just teared apart the lion cub, okay? So basically, he will put them in danger because they knew about it, and now they go to Timnata to initiate this process. So maybe he said, you know what, it's better for me not to tell them anything, so they don't know anything about my strength. So if they were questioned, they will say, I had no idea what you're talking about. Now, can someone tell me why lion cub and not a lion?
Line's pretty big, as it would have been more of a challenge.
So why? Why a lion cub?
Make sure he succeeded.
I think just to show that's the beginning. You are just starting. והוא יחל להושיע את ישראל. With David HaMelech he says, Ari, like a lion, ודוב, a bear, okay? היכה עבדיך. Meaning when Shaul says to David, like, who are you? Like, what are you doing? He says, yeah, I'm a thin guy, but don't look at me like that. I killed the lion, I killed the bear. When they came to attack my flock, I killed them both. Okay, good. So the idea is that according to the Malbim, Shimshon realizes that what? That the beginning starts now. Okay. So, וירד שמשון, וירד וידבר לאישה, ותישר בעיני שמשון. Again, עיני שמשון, Shimshon's eyes.
ישר בעיניה, זה one of the themes of ספר שופטים. כל איש עושה...
הישר בעיניו, נכון, that's when I will give a full class on all ספר שופטים. That's not today. But you are correct. וישוב מימים לקחתה. So, he basically, I guess, creates some kind of an engagement or some kind of a contract that he's going to marry her. By the way, we don't know anything about her, just the fact that she's a bnot Plishtim. ויסר לראות את מפלת האריה, והנה עדת דבורים בגוויית האריה ודבש. So he sees in this lion cub's mouth, or what used to be this lion cub, he saw what? Honey. וירדהו אל כפיו, he takes from the honey. You have a nevela, and you have honey there, and he takes it.
So it's coming.
וילך החול, הלוך ואכול, וילך אל אביו ואל אמו, ויתן להם ויאכלו. ולא הגיד להם כי מגוויית האריה רדה הדבש. Give it to his parents. And he didn't tell them that where it's from. So they think he probably found what? Beehive, yeah, somewhere, it's nice. Maybe he bought it. They don't ask anything, and they also eat it, which, by the way, reminds us something very famous, that the woman gave it to Adam HaRishon, and he didn't ask any questions, just say thank you. He didn't even say thank you, and he just ate it, okay? You don't ask, especially you. The Malach told you, be careful with everything that is impure. So don't you ask her, where did you get it from? Nothing. Everything is fine. She just get the honey and they move on. Now, there is also one more thing with honey. By the way, when the Torah says Eretz et shemen udvash, we're not talking about bees, we're talking about tmarim, dates. However, there is in halacha, there is obviously a question about honey that comes from bees. Why? Because they are tmeim. Okay? So, and on that there is a pasuk, mi a'otzi tameh mitahor mitameh alo echad. Meaning, this is an interesting thing. When you think about this example, and we speak about the complexity of Shimon's personality, you have the tameh and the tahor at the same time. You have the dvash itself is tahor, I mean, it's kosher, it's okay to eat, but it comes from what? From an impure and the tameh animal, not animal, beast. Sheretz. So, insect, thank you. So the idea is also with Shimshon, from Tameh, he's going to do now something Tameh, which is to marry this Bat Plishtim, but something Tahor will come out from it. Okay. Says the Malbim, וירדהו אל כפיו, בעבור שהלך לקחת אישה מפלישתים, נכשל לאכול דבש טמא. I interpret it as a sign for a good thing. The Malbim says the opposite. He ate something tameh. Why it's tameh? Not that the dvash is tameh. It's because it was where? In the mouth of this, what used to be the Aryeh Zichrono Livrocha. Right? So this is tameh. So this is basically was a sign to Shimshon. You are going to what? To do something tameh. כמו שאמרו חז"ל, הוא נתאווה לדבר tameh. Okay. So now, וירד אביהו אל האישה. So, still pasuk Yud, the last pasuk on page 2. וירד אביהו אל האישה, so his father went down to this woman. ויעש שם שמשון משתה, כי כן יעשו הבחורים. So Shimshon will make a feast, like all the other guys will do. Okay, we will stop here and I'll just sum it up, and next week Bezrat will continue. So he's doing a mishteh. So in a mishteh, what do you serve? I would guess you serve wine. So first and foremost, when you make a mishteh, the first thing that you need to have when you have a mishteh, besides the wine and the alcohol, is friends, right? You need to have friends because it's a if not, it's a party of one. Okay? And it seems to be that he has a mishteh, and he's one of the guys. It says, "Kasher asu." Where's that? Ki ken yasu abachurim. So it seems to be, and this is something that we will build for next week. He feels pretty comfortable with the Plishtim boys. He's one of them. They treat him like he's one of them. He feels like he's one of them. And also, don't forget, just add to it, and we will deal with that later on, is that he comes from Shevet Dan. And really, the first class, we spoke about it. And I asked you, do you know anything positive and nice about Shevet Dan? And most of you came up with 0 answers besides Shimshon, which become now more and more complicated, and we're not sure if that's a machma'ah, it's that a compliment, or that's not a compliment. Shevet Dan is known to be Me'asef, the last tribe of the other tribes, but also someone who brought an idol, Pesel Micha, with him, and was not known to be mamish the best tribe ever. Yeah, they improved, whatever it is, but Shimshon is their hero. And Yaakov himself give a bracha to him, and whatever it is, so the idea is that it might be, this is more for the 21st century, when you are being rejected or you have no friends with your own people, you find different people. So Shimshon goes to Timnata and he does it in a very natural way. He's one of the gang, he's one of the boys. Now, it might be that it was also his plan to show I'm with you and now when you made me so upset, I will take my revenge. So we will leave that for next week. B'ezrat Hashem, take those papers with you, or just give it back to the front desk, so we will have it for next week.